pass the baton to Marc. And Marc, take it away.
All right, great. Thank you, Michael. And thank you everyone for having me. It's terrific to be in a network, be part of a network like this. I belong to both the one that I'm going to talk about tonight, which is SageWorx, which is a collective of independent folks, and another one that's focused on sports marketing specifically. But what I want to talk to you tonight is a little bit about SageWorx. And since it's meant to be a conversation, not a presentation, I'll start with, though, I have slides, of course, to make it interesting. I'll start with a little bit more on a little bit about who I am. Sorry if the slides are jumping here.
Oh, we see it.
Delay here. Hang on, I want to go to the one that has my face on it. And when it shows up, it's coming. Hang on, here it goes. I got a few clicks ahead, I think. There we go.
See it. Okay,
good. Myself, I'm Marc Calamia, and my partner is Patrick Conroe. We basically met, I moved from New York a few years ago, and then met Patrick along the way, and then realized that we needed to go into business together. What I have in content production, 15 plus years in content production, he has in experiential marketing. And so, the two of us kind of philosophically see those two things as one. If everything is being done right, the commercial lines up with the experience you have in store at product. And as they say, the brand is the thing that you feel when you're not thinking about the brand, when you're not in one of those touch points, that sort of summary feeling, and content and experience is a big part of that. So we focused on content and experiences, and we brought 21 independent seasoned strategists, creatives, and producers together. They're all experienced in and outside of agencies, some untethered, as I like to say, sort of stayed outside of the realm, but freelanced into a variety of agencies, and think about how they do their work and optimizing that. And that's one of the reasons why they haven't sort of been beholden to any one shop. So it's a good approach where multiple disciplines, we're all hybrids. We like to say M-shaped in 3 discipline depths, that together integrate the services that we output. I'm going to mostly talk about virtual experiences, but I just wanted to give you sort of a sense of who we are and what the company is at large. Again, as I said, focus on content and experiences. We lean into the model a little bit more and streamline, get rid of the noise, and make the workflow better for ourselves. And then also in terms of the clients we offer, as compared to maybe a traditional agency structure, more transparency, wrapping ourselves around the business challenges in a way that augments who they often have internally. Whether they've got a full marketing department or just 1 or 2 consultants in focused areas, we can kind of wrap around that and augment that. Not an unusual model, and not unlike, in a lot of ways, the spirit of trusted referrals. I have a little video. I don't think it's going to play very well. It's 45 seconds long. Is it playing?
Yeah, you may have to put your audio, connect your audio. Let's see if we hear it. Don't hear it.
Oh, good. That's okay. I'll go on beyond it. It's a collection of some of the commercials and the live experiences, both in person as well as virtual, which of course leads me to virtual and experiences. This is a good section, a cross section of all the different services that we touch. As I said, since we're multifaceted, we believe in the services ideally should be integrated. And because we've got experiences in those different areas, we do represent these types of deliverables. Project-based experiences, project-based engagements mostly. The retainer model has a lot of strain on it, certainly from the way the traditional agency model is with clients. And it, throughout the years, that distrust that sort of builds up when they're paying you a bunch of money and you may or may not be making exactly what it is they want you to be focused on, or this sort of always on. We're more like mercenaries, and we focus specifically in on the particular task at hand. We do have retainer relationships because some clients just prefer to work that way, but our goal is to be in and out and to give you something very specific. And again, as I said, I'm going to talk about virtual events. When COVID hit and separated all of us, it put us, thrust us, which I was really excited about, frankly, into this environment of virtualization. And of course, limiting all the in-person opportunities, all those different mechanics about the way that we interacted in those events needed to find a home in this, rectangular Brady Bunch kind of environment. So applying what SageWorx is all about. And of course, we had some clients with some in-person events that we needed to reconfigure for them directly, but then started to get more calls in this particular area because we focus on bringing the right ingredients to bear, taking them from, what are typically these sort of one-to-many presentations to a more dynamic environment and experience that, again, full circle, if you have a 2-day or a 3-day event, or you're looking for an event that has multiple parts in even one day, just to get people to come back and to re-engage once they're there is a big challenge. And then of course, reaching them to begin with through the email clutter, et cetera, and getting people to register. And the engagement starts much earlier. So again, we focus on those ingredients and bring those to bear as best we can. The first thing we do, of course, is start with why they want to have an event, just so we can zero in on the exact thing that they need to replicate the most, and a live concert with musicians that we were doing for Staples that had headliners and suddenly lost the environment, suddenly had to change, drastically. Nurses looking for an educational sort of annual conference where they get credits, that's a different need and a different source of interaction and different takeaways. So, a Zoom call, sort of one size fits all approach to all those different things doesn't really work. So we start with why, and then we think about what tools we can bring. And there are many. I worked at NBC Universal in the early mid 2000s for a good part of 5 years, trying to help them bring content to the web when the web was new. And since then, I've been passionately involved in streaming and the technologies along the way, that plus my theater experience, which predates all of that, and find the commonalities in these experiences that we have, whether it's in person, whether it's a film, a commercial, or a presentation, or a simple webinar. If you start with why, then unlike in those early days in the 2000s where things didn't integrate and technologies couldn't talk to one another, today there's a lot of really smart, terrific, agile integrations that you can add to Zoom and make some aspect of it more, a richer environment and richer experience, or platforms altogether, which I'd love to show you guys about. We don't have a lot of time, but certainly something we can follow up on. Something we pride ourselves in is knowing what's out there and how they can integrate. After you start with why you want to have the event, for sure, and that sounds really trite, but it really does, if you can answer those questions specifically, it'll lead you to a specific solution. Then which type of event is the best thing? We think in person and we think virtual. Hybrid is something that we're probably more familiar with and easy to, more comfortable talking about now. But for those of you who don't know, it's a combination of the two. Certainly when we look ahead, we think about what in a year from now events are going to look like. There's probably some of these digital aspects that we're going to want to pull forward with them. I know that may be hard to realize right now or to think because we're all so tired of Zoom, perhaps. But there are little elements about the way you use the chat feed when you have this kind of environment, or some of these, as I mentioned, these tools that can offer that we probably will pull forward. And the biggest point is that taking some of those in-person characteristics and bringing them into this digital environment will amplify the engagement level. The ability for people to hook into what you're saying and what you're presenting can be amplified a lot with some of those things. So looking more towards hybrid as we progress. Today, what does that mean? Not just a combination. Oops, went too far. It'll come back. But personalization, first and foremost. Thinking about, I love this quote: if a virtual event doesn't include interactivity and networking, it's just a webinar. And that's true. There's a dialogue that we want that changes it from a webinar and some kind of presentational case study into a conversation. And we want conversations, not keynotes, right? You don't want to just talk at people. You want to get them engaged. So if you can personalize it, certainly. If you can intermix live and virtual segments, so you pre-record some things and then you do some things live, that takes a little bit of the burden off and it makes it dynamic for the audience. I could go on and on. There's simple ways, and then there are add-ons. Simple things we borrow from television experience, and as I mentioned, my experience all the way back to theater. We're helping. I'm losing the name, Christie's right now with a fundraising event, and their biggest challenge is that people are, interested in particular objects. How do they expose those objects to the audience? It's the first challenge, and they're doing quite well with that. But then beyond that, how do they give the people on stage, the host, the MC, the auctioneer, the visibility? Oh, 5 minutes out?
left. Yeah,
All right,
5 minutes left. Yeah.
Okay, good. How do they connect those audience mechanics so that they can get their finger on the pulse and raise more money? They know when someone's about, or they're interested in an object because they can tell that they're looking at it or interacting with it. Some of those audience mechanics or signals are missing right now. Some of these tools that I'm talking about today, as well as just how you configure the basics, allow some of those signals to come through, and that's critical to their business. So that's a certain type of event that they'll have. And
do you want to set aside time for questions? There were 2 questions that came up.
Okay. Yeah. No, you know what? I'm on my last 2 slides. Okay. Pivot to hybrid, change some of the things, create some segments. It's not that long, same experience, just transplant it onto the web. Don't take the same script. And if there's elements of variety that you can interact with, that you can, change and then give people the ability to interact with, that'll really help your engagement. And one of the things that I really love, actually, I wanted to call out on that last slide, and that's, if you can mix, in this image right here, there's 4 people on the stage, they're socially distanced. You could put 10 people also socially distanced in the audience, and we just see the backs of their heads. And when you hear a conversation, you're hearing people naturally talk with one another, a volley, not interrupting and the mics are getting muted or they're muted when they talk, but rather a dialogue that we're used to seeing, right? That's going to go up tremendously in value in terms of what the viewer is going to be able to enjoy and empathically experience. And then seeing an audience, just the backs of their heads or hearing there, we all know what baseball sounds like right now, and it's a lot better than, even though the audience isn't there, football too, without that audience soundtrack, even though it's a little heavy-handed in some places, I'm sure, it fills in a big gap. So if you could bring those elements to bear, you'll make it a lot more engaging. And this is just an example of a studio that allows you all to get together. So these are our services. I'll open the floor for questions. And again, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Marc. Regina asked, have you done events for pharma clients because of the regulations limit what you can do?
I haven't yet. No, I haven't. I wish I could say that I have. It's harder. I've done a lot of TV commercials and content for pharma clients, but not specifically a live event. We did do a live event for, as I mentioned, top level 700 nurses who needed to, one, have security around the information that was shared. And there were a lot of medical components, so one sheets and resources that would typically go along with that type of engagement. And then finally, the ability to take courses and have multiple choice capture answers so that they could get credit for attending a lot of the things. Not just I went there, but check the box, but also data fed back to. And some of these tools like Brella comes to mind if you're interested. Brella. They have a fantastic turnkey tool that streams for you and handles all the back end of those more complex, even AI driven metrics and feedback and reporting. So that might probably be required. I'm more so on the security. Once you get the messaging down in pharma, you can, it's not too restrictive as far as, my experience, but getting there is the hard part.
Thanks. Robert, I'm not sure I understand your question. It says, how do you justify engagement from a virtual event? Can you clarify that?
Yeah, okay, I'm on Zoom right now, but I could click away to my browser right now, and not pay attention to you. I could hear you, but not really pay attention. How do you kind of
validate?
Validate, yeah.
Okay.
Validate, yeah, sure.
Back to the client. In a few different ways. That's why I'll answer your question sort of in a few different parts. Creatively speaking, by making the content much more engaging. Like this is a slideshow. If I was really going for a higher level of engagement, I would probably use something like StreamYard, where I could change the dynamic, the size, and the cadence, the rhythm, visually speaking. And then as far as inserting content, that video would have done a lot more than not seeing it in terms of the energy level and the connection. So I would try to keep your attention with a better show, said frankly. And then secondly, there are ways to engage before the event that actually give you a stronger connection ahead of the event. So anticipation, right? I mean, you can't walk into the theater and see the curtains with the lights on them right now and anticipate before the show. But we try to recreate that by engaging you with some of the content early and then giving you a very easy way in to register. In other words, I'm not going to hit you in an email right at the gate with a form that has 15 fields in it, even if you've got some autofill software that makes that easier, which I highly recommend. But if you just something simple that gets you in and gets you at the event, and then we can engage you with additional questions and things that we're trying to get and serve back to our sponsors. And then thirdly, and this is probably in terms of ROI, one of the best things you can do, which will validate, and that is give your sponsors, just like we might tier the access, there's a free and then there's a slightly higher ticket price and a slightly higher ticket price for different levels of access. For example, that's an in-person event commonality. Bring that in the front door with higher engagement up front, like I just said. And then on the outside, for your sponsors, give them tiered levels of participation and visibility in the event so that you can give yourself the opportunity to sell more upside, and then give with some of these tools like Brella, another good example, or another example of using that tool. It will match make sponsors who are paying for your event to happen to connect with a specific type of audience. And if you've done that initial outreach with that tool, you can tie it all the way back to the sponsors and tell them, here's who was interested in X, here's who interacted with Y, and here's who is interested or didn't show up. There's a lot of great tools that you can facilitate today that will help you go from Zoom to Zoom Plus, or if you're really doing something big with a large audience, a higher level of production value and more engagement tools.
All right, cool. Let's wrap it up. Marc, thank you so much. I know, Robert, I think you were looking more for how do you measure engagement, but maybe you guys can connect offline. There were two other questions. Rochelle had a question and Keith had a question. I encourage you to connect offline via Slack or whatever. Also, Slack is, I think, relatively easy to use, but you can, if you want to put your LinkedIn link in the chat, I will send it around to everybody, the whole chat summary to everybody on the call. Great. So thanks. You. I'm going to, let's see, go back to host only sharing, and that means everybody's here. So we have, looks like we have 12 minus Marc already did it. That's 11. Let's do 2 minutes, or maybe 2:30 for everyone. And then that should give us enough time to close at the end, and pretty much enough time for everybody to talk a bit and explain what they do. So I'll start with Regina, Joe, and then Marc. And I will I'll put my clock up, my phone up. When it rings, you'll also hear it. If everybody else could be on mute, that would be great, because I'm going to go to speaker view and recording everything so that the person who's speaking will show up. Regina, you are up.
Oh, why'd you pick me first? See how you are. Okay, my name is Regina Shanklin. I am a marketing strategy consultant, meaning that I work upstream of the tactical components. So I work largely in healthcare. I have done some work in tobacco, which is also heavily regulated. And so what I normally do is work on the segmentation, the targeting, the messaging strategy, and then the tactics we should work on, largely with launch products. And I've worked across mostly general practitioner type things like diabetes or cardiovascular, stroke, those, and not so much in oncology or rare disease. So that is what I do. My clients are typically marketing VPs or marketing directors of companies. I typically work for mostly mid-sized to smaller pharma companies. It's hard to get into the bigger ones with their purchasing, but that's what I'm doing. Right now I have 3 things in the hopper. Of course, my cat keeps messing up the computer. So we'll see how those go. Those are basically on launch products. So we'll see. I'm hoping one of them lands. You know how consulting can be. Any questions?
Got still a minute. Who's your best leads?
My best leads are mostly smaller to mid-sized pharma companies. So, but it has to be somebody in marketing. So, you know, being a strategy consultant, it's not, I've tried advertising on LinkedIn, that doesn't work, stuff like that. And even doing a lot of email marketing. I mean, people will read my emails. I have high open rates and click through, but I don't tend to get hired that way. It's usually word of mouth. People have worked with me in the past, or I get referred by that. But it's marketing VPs or directors that have a launch product. I don't know if that helps.
Absolutely. All right, great. Let us move on. That was Regina. Joe, you want to go?
Yeah, and Regina, it's our fault that we're going first. We got on early, so there you go. That'll teach us. Thanks, Michael. Joe Magid, Griffin Solutions. I do IT management consulting. I help companies build IT departments that get the job done every day. My special sauce is a business-focused methodology that's infused with years of experience, bridging the gap between IT and the business. My clients engage me based on their trust that I'll get the job done, and that's based on their trust in my referral network, as well as the validation from my references. My target market is 50 to several hundred million, give or take. They've got to be big enough to have enough IT stuff going on that when I help them, they get a ROI that's going to justify the cost and more importantly, their time. Because I don't cost that much compared to the time the management's got to spend in the process. That's really the key part. You know, my best prospect contact is either the IT responsible person, who, by the way, is usually not reporting to the CEO, and they're not at the table when strategies being established and adjusted, and they're an order taker, and that is what is a big problem with the way things are being managed. So I'm there to help them out, or the CEO, especially when somebody's relatively new in the position and recognizes that IT is not getting the job done, they need to do something about it if they're going to be successful. COO, similar scenario. CFO sometimes, but not as frequently. In the end, I built satisfaction with folks' IT teams.
Great. Well, thank you. We will move on to Mark, Rochelle, and Audrey in that order. So Mark, T-Ball.
Oh, hi. I'm Mark. I'm T-Ball, and I'm with Growth Strategy Advisors. What we do basically is market, what I say, pre-branding. So basically we do things like go-to-market positioning, market discovery, industry discovery, competitive analysis, market segmentation, all these wonderful things, both quantitative and qualitative. And I love doing it for private companies, but mostly I do it for private equity groups. And many times they've already decided what they're going to buy, and so it's my job to prove or disprove. But I mean, ultimately what we're looking to do is build go-to-market strategies, do a lot of customer experience, and that's really what I do. My best clients are obviously private equity groups, but also I really like to be introduced to CPAs and attorneys because they're the ones that bring me to private clients, and they're actually more fun. And I do some technology consulting too. So that's, in fact, right now I'm working through a whole project on customer experience, and that's a joy.
Customer experience in what area? Is it a web kind of thing?
Well, I mean, basically what they're trying to do, this client, and I can't talk about it too much, but they're trying to align their customer experience methodology with their web analytics. And of course, then they also have the whole Adobe package, so that, but of course, they do not have the Adobe customer experience package. So they're trying to put all this together, and it's a joy. I'll just leave it at that.
That sounds good. Thank you very much. Let's move on to Rochelle, then Audrey, then Robert Weiss. Rochelle, you are up.
Hi there. It's Rochelle, company's dynamic business growth. And I always say it's dynamic business growth and not schlep along business growth. And when it comes to business, very often companies have a very hard time articulating what they say. So people spend God knows how much time, money, and effort on their web branding. Sometimes people take it to the next level and speak about their personal, their individual branding within the company or an industry, but very few people talk about their verbal branding. How do you say what you say in a way so that your clients understand what the hell you're selling? And especially if you have any kind of complicated product. So I always say, a lot of people start a presentation, they'll say, my name is John, I'm doing this for 20 years and I'm located in Midtown Manhattan. And my response to that is, I don't care. So I want to know, what is your high level thinking? And can you tell a story that represents it? So my tagline is always, are you storytelling or boring telling? Creating these dynamic stories for presentations, for pitch decks, for sales presentations is where I've done a lot of my, great work recently. So right now I'm working with a client that I wrote his pitch deck for him, but he has to learn how to speak into it. So it sounds natural. So he sounds confident so that somebody's going to write him a check. So just doing your pitch deck is one thing. Speaking into it is a whole different ballgame. Salespeople, are you talking about the benefits to the company? Or are you talking about what we do? I don't care what you do. I want to know what's the benefit to the organization. And let's take it a step further. What's the benefit of the benefit? Really dig deep. What's the ripple effect of what you do? When you start speaking into that and you go zero into that, it's a whole different ballgame. So again, people that bring me in are people that are looking to expand. So a good cross-put, if a company's changing their website, they're rebranding, those are great times for me to come in and see how do we talk about what you're doing now. A lot of times people need to shift what they're saying now in conjunction to COVID. What you might have been selling or what your focal point was a year ago is not going to do it right now. So your messaging is clear, and it's not your messaging. Your messaging, I think, is a lot of what I call information dump. I want to know what's your story. The difference between a case study and a story is emotion. And that's what I want to leave everybody on.
Wonderful. Thank you. You definitely used up the entire 2.5 minutes. Well done. Audrey, Robert, then Keith.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Glover-Dictor PL. I'm a solo practitioner in Florida. And to follow with what Rochelle just said, so the ripple effect of what I do is I help businesses minimize legal risk for false and misleading advertising, IP infringement, privacy law issues or violations, and ADA non-compliance. So basically, I help businesses try not to get sued for any of those. I do advertising law, I do IP law, intellectual property law, and I do privacy law compliance. And I review the campaigns, marketing campaigns from beginning to end. And everybody has a website, right? So just know, if you have a website, you need to be privacy law compliant and ADA compliant. And there is an uptick of ADA non-compliance lawsuits going on because there's a lot of trolls going through websites. They pick certain fields and then they start going through websites and then you start getting letters. So you don't want one of those. It's just basically what I tell my clients is it's a lot easier to be legally compliant and do all your legal due diligence ahead of time. And trust me, it costs a lot less to do it that way than wait to do it later when you get that letter from the FTC or the FDA or the State Attorney General's Council, or even a local jurisdiction like New York City has rules. I work with small and medium agencies, small and medium firms, small and medium businesses, startups, entrepreneurs. And I do a lot of speaking because very few people know that advertising law exists and it affects everybody who has any campaign, especially a website, and that they need to be compliant with it. And according to FTC law, your marketing has to be legally compliant before you launch it publicly. Also, I am Latin, so I do speak fluent Spanish, and I save my clients time and money by not having to translate If you're advertising in Spanish, you don't need to translate it for me. And I help you with the language nuances and make sure that your message is not lost with, with using different languages. Audrey Clovey Dictor, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and a couple of questions came up in the chat, and you can definitely connect with folks afterwards. So Robert, then Keith, then Kristen. Robert, you are up.
All right, just want to say hello to Michael and Mark. I've seen you around. Audrey, hello. Rochelle, Keith, and Jeff. Some people I've been saying around. So everybody else, hello. First timers, nice to meet you all. And hello to the people that I've seen around a while. So Robert Weiss, my company is Multivision Digital, and we are a digital marketing company. And since COVID hit, we've pivoted and really helped people at organizations, or people, it's obviously ultimately we're helping people, working with people to become thought leaders. And we do that by content, because that's the world that we live in today. And we're delivering video content at the tip of the iceberg and diluting all that contextual and other forms of content. So we start with a video first strategy, and we utilize these phones. We have an app where we can record up to 4K video content and do some amazing stuff from an editing standpoint. But really it is creating that video content that answers questions that everybody repeats all the time. And you can put them in emails and websites and LinkedIn and do all the other great things with it. So that's like one main part of our business. We work a lot with lawyers and accountants, and also manufacturing companies that have complicated stuff to say. So if you're creating a document with text, charts, graphs, or your client has a Zoom webinar that has 20 slides and features that Zoom text like that, and no person, get the person out in front of people. So that's what we've been doing for the last 6 months, and we see that continuing over the next couple of years, obviously, because people are remote. And then the other part of our business, which has been nascent over the last 6 months, but we actually were just shooting today, so it's great. We were on location video, content creation from any type of top of the funnel, the bottom of the funnel, every single thing in between. We've done, I think the number is about 900 videos over the last, almost 10 years now. Got a bunch of skill sets. So happy to chat, talk to anybody, work with anybody, collaborate. That's all I got.
And you want to show your Oscar over your right shoulder? Is that?
That's actually a telly. Yes, yes. I did place that there, and it's been there for probably 2 months. I kind of forgot it's there. I don't see it anymore. But I'm waiting for another one. We got a content innovation award that it's kind of like rounded, but I got another one coming there pretty
Wonderful.
soon. So yeah, so cool stuff. So
hi
everybody.
So Keith, you are up. Keith, you there?
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Mark, great job. Your enthusiasm and your background and everything you're doing is really exciting. So welcome and good to meet you. Look forward to following up. So I have a firm called Publio, and we are a content strategy company. We also get involved in a number of tactical things where we can add value. About a year ago, I published a book called The New Content Culture. And in it, we have a 7-step or I call them 7 buckets to focus on developing a content strategy. So what I love to do is whiteboard with executives and get them thinking in a very simple 7-step formula about how to do content marketing. And I've built the idea around creating what I've done for the last 10 years, building content hubs that are real deep, multimedia deep dives that are there for your customers to explore, learn, educate, have an experience, get to know you on their terms, and has lots of opportunities for them to continue into the relationship on their own terms. And I found it an extremely effective way of marketing. The 7 steps are North Star idea, an editorial strategy and calendar, publishing and promotion, and using the social networks to drive people back to your content. The idea of a content hub is where you store your content and you're bringing people back to you. And then community and events, not only taking your content out to the community digitally and in the physical world, but also using the contacts that you have when you're out in the marketplace to gather content and look for ideas. Marketing automation, the closed loop system that becomes your Nielsen, giving you the reports back so that you know what's going on, what's working and what's not, so you can adjust and do continuous improvement. Sales enablement, so that this material all gets out into the hands of your salespeople, and they're tightly integrated in the goals, and setting the goals. Actually, you're servicing them, and then an ROI model, so that we're managing the whole thing as a business. So the tactical things are content branding, market research audits, SEO audits, thought leadership and content development, writing white papers. I've been doing that much of my career. And then webinars, live events, and virtual events. And I've just produced 6 segments for Stanford Innovation Week, which is tomorrow. Mark, you asked about cool events that I had done. I'm about to do one, so I hope to report back to you with good news. But if you want to join, all the content's free. Pretty much what you outlined, Mark, was like the way that we've gone about this. So I can attest to your expertise and the knowledge you shared. But there's a ton of content from national, not only local, but national and international thought leaders around some of the biggest issues that we're dealing with. And I invite you, the content's free. And then there's a 40% discount at siweek.org. Use VIP 40. And you can do the networking and get access to the content later on. I hope I'm about out of time, I bet.
Oh yeah, you went over, but that's okay. You and Mark should definitely connect also with, what's her name? I actually mentioned the company to, what's the name of the company? I can't remember it. You know what I'm talking about.
In Captive.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
In Captive. Anyway, do it offline because we got to move on.
I will definitely follow up with you on that.
So Kristen, then Jeff, then Jason, then me. So Kristen, you're up.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Kristen Highland. I am a corporate communications practitioner with heavy emphasis on strategy. Most of my experience comes from years spent in corporate at Fortune 500 technology companies. More recently, I branched out to take on consulting projects and in this case, my focus is on startups. So people who are really just, before they even can run and do all the fancy bells and whistles, they're really still in the stage of, we have all this great stuff, why don't people like it? And so I'm kind of deep down in the mud trying to weed through, lots of content in the beginning and, get them ready for prime time. The second piece, and Mark, I'd like to talk to you offline. I do work for a nonprofit simply because I love it. It's called Beneath the Sea, and it's the largest scuba diving travel trade show in the world. We do it once a year. Obviously, not doing it this year, so it's perfect timing to talk because I'm deep into it. What do I do now?
Wonderful. Okay. And best leads, you have another minute.
My best leads typically come from people that I've worked in the past. If it's in-house for a corporation, it's the chief marketing officer. If it's or it's an executive leadership team that is really looking to shake things up in advance of a big movement, a merger or acquisition, or selling off a piece of the business, rebranding.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, Jeff, I think this is your first meeting, correct? And then followed by Jason.
Yes, can you hear me okay? I just unmuted it, so I'll make sure it's
working. Yeah, perfect.
So first of all, thank you to Michael Bendit for inviting me, and sorry I was late. I am mercifully and thankfully very suddenly busy. It's really good. It was a very quiet summer. So a client who was going to shoot a commercial in May is now wants 5 TV commercials by the end of 2020. So I'm being very careful not to walk directly into Rochelle's admonition and tell you tell you three things, but rather to tell you this. I own Fresh Branding Group. It's an advertising agency. We are the perfect advertising agency. Is that possible? Could anyone actually have and say that they are the perfect advertising agency? Actually, the answer is, in this particular case, yes. We're the perfect advertising agency, and I'm going to tell you why I'm going to do it in my very limited time. So we have three partners. I am the creative director. I am also the founder. I started in 2007. So yeah, we've been around for a little bit I can't believe it, 13 years. It's wish me happy birthday. It's my bar mitzvah from my agency because we're 13 years old. Just amazing. My background is as a creative copywriter, actually starting in 14 million years ago. It was a Paleolithic era when actually it was an agency called Doyle Dane Bernbach where I started. Some of you may know that advertising agency. They had these little accounts called Volkswagen and something that's dead now called Polaroid, things like that. Doyle and Bernbach was, it was when I got a job there, it was like getting into Harvard and Yale the same day. And then I bounced around to a variety of really large agencies, you guys may know the agencies. So just because you are in this space with me. So it went from Doyle and Bernbach to TBWA, to Ogilvy and Mather, then McCann Erickson, Young and Rubicam, Della Femina, J. Walter Thompson, an agency called Draft, which has now been merged into FCB. And I did that specifically because I really wanted to get into digital. And then in 2007, as I said, I started a Fresh Branding Group. My other partners, one partner is the former head of marketing at Warner Lambert, and then moved to a smaller OTC pharma company and started a brand which you know called Mucinex. Yes, he started Mr. Mucus. Okay, and then my other partner is really our digital expert. So good contacts for Fresh Branding Group. Consultants, business consultants. Well, of course, lots of chief marketing officers and marketing people. But really, consultants are great. Business consultants are really terrific.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're going to go to Jason, and then I will close it up. Jason, you're up.
Excellent. Thank you. So Jason Cement. Sorry, Rochelle, but my name is Jason, and my company is called Get Visible. But that's how I like to start. You know who you're talking to. I have an agency. One side of my life is an agency that I run with my partner. We have 15 people working for us. We do two things. We build websites, and then we promote the heck out of them. And that is search engine rankings, pay-per-click advertising, writing content for their blogs, creating infographics, all the stuff that goes into the website, and then social media channels, which is where the voice of the client on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, the basic stuff like that, and then driving traffic through advertising. So it's the intersection of search and social. That's side one. Side two is I have a heavy involvement in e-commerce. As Michael knows well by now, I invested in a company years ago that has an e-commerce platform that is really geared in between Shopify and Magento, if those names mean anything to you. So if you have clients that are hating their website and they're like, everything works wrong. This is a system that's homegrown. It's a 15-year-old system. I mean, the new update's coming literally this week, a 5-year update. It's a very cool system. It does a lot of stuff. It's what they call, you call that a content hub, Keith. So it's an e-commerce content hub. It's got it all embedded in one system. The best referrals for me are when you have clients that are complaining because they're just not getting the ROI out of the web. Then I've only learned this week the extent of how much our creative input makes a difference, because one of my buddies has been designing software for 2 years and he's still not out in the marketplace. And the reason is because he doesn't have a product manager. And I know from our e-commerce that we do that without even thinking about it, but yet he spent 2 years spending like $500,000 and he still doesn't have something ready to go. So if you need the team that has from A to Z, that's what we got. So thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you. And that leaves me, and it leaves me with just about a few minutes. So I will start. So of course, thank you everybody for joining this group. My name is Michael Bendit. In addition to founding and running the Trusted Referral Network, I have a business representing software development teams. Just from a show of hands, yes or no in the chat, how many people have ever had a problem with a development team or a developer? All right.
Even me.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't say that my teams never have problems, but we are very committed to making sure that we resolve them and to the satisfaction of our clients. It's a lot of software development is really problem solving, and that's what software developers love, right? They're into fixing things, building and fixing things. So my background has been on the business side of technology, mostly software technology, also hardware, but sales, marketing, and consulting in those spaces. The company I founded about 9 years ago in 2011, Software Development Resources, is a rep firm, and I represent about 10 different teams. They're all boutique firms that have specialties in different areas. E-commerce being one of them, and I am now working with Jason's team, Jason Cement's team, because they do have a unique offering and a unique skill set in a space that really does have a gap, and that is between sort of the relatively simple Shopify capability and the very complex, very expensive Magento. But we also do mobile applications, and we do a lot of websites, basic content management systems. We try to use the tools that are out there for most people, the open source tools, primarily because there's lots of developers, and it makes it less expensive to build and less expensive to maintain because you've got lots of choices. And people come to me because they don't really know where to go. Maybe they, this is their first product or their first website, or they're not happy with who they have and it's just not working out. Then they need somebody to come in and rescue. So I'll end it with that. That's actually my time. I started with this in the beginning. We have about a minute, and a few people came a little bit late. Jeff, this might be pertinent to your partner, who's the former Warner Lambert, was he CMO? Looking for, we were introduced today, actually, I spoke with him today, to another potential client for the group. They target large consumer packaged goods, I shouldn't say that, B2C companies that have fairly large marketing spend with a product that is a marketing resource management tool, very comprehensive. They sort of position it as the ERP of marketing operations. And I'm looking for a few people within the group or even referrals who can help me vet it as, determining, is this really a unique product or not? And so they're going to provide a demo to us sometime in a week or two. So it should be interesting. I mean, I think it looks like a really interesting product. It gets high grades from in the Magic Quadrant from Gartner. They're a $20 million company, so they're considerably bigger than the other two companies we're currently representing. And I think it could be a nice way to sort of step up what we're offering in our network, which is connections to potential buyers. So thank you, everybody, for coming today. Please connect directly with each other. That's really the best way to get to know what the other does. You can do that on Slack. You can do it via LinkedIn. I've made progress on the website. I can't say exactly when it's going to come out because I got to work through issues, but we will have a directory website in the not too distant future where everyone will have their own page, and it'll be very easy to find people based on their specialties. So thank you very much, and feel free to connect, reach out to me if you want to do a one-on-one.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
You.
Thank you.
Michael.
Have a
Hey, everybody.
absolutely. Have a
Be
great
well.
great evening.
Thanks.